Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. It is officially draft season, and we're taking a look at a first round 2023 NFL mock draft from Josh Edwards of CBS Sports. Again, still just trying to get a feel of some of these top prospects in the first round, releasing our position rankings probably in January, getting deeper and deeper into the prospects. Very excited to start talking about my favorite season, the NFL draft season. Let's get into it. Before we do, though, just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown. I love talking the NFL draft. I love talking prospects. It's part of the beauty of talking prospects is you never agree. You have a lot of great talks in the comment section, and you guys have been absolutely very, very supportive of us. So if you do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into talking some of the players. So with the first overall pick, the Houston Texans go Bryce Young. My mind, this makes a lot of sense. He's my quarterback one as of right now. The pocket presence, the pocket composure, the accuracy, the ability to throw on the run. That Alabama offense was not good this year. The only really good part about it was Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs. And Bryce Young, and when you saw Alabama's offense working under Bill O'Brien, it was when Bryce Young was creating by himself. He can do it with not that much around him. That's why I like him the most versus CJ Stroud. He's throwing to the best wide receiver in the country, Marvin Harrison Jr., throwing to guys like Julian Fleming, Jaxon Smith-Njigba last year, Garrett Wilson. I just trust Bryce Young a little bit better, especially when you're going to a team that's probably not going to have the most talent around him in the Houston Texans. Yes, I understand you're concerned about the size, but from what you've seen the last 2 years out of Bryce Young, I think it's hard to argue that he's not the best quarterback in this draft class. Pick 2, the Bears, seemingly like they want to stick with Justin Fields. They go best prospect available, and that's going to be Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, I think it's a really interesting conversation. From what you've seen out of Jalen Carter when healthy, he absolutely wrecks games, and I'm not going to necessarily argue that Jalen Carter is the best available prospect that's not a quarterback. Rushes the passer. I mean, you look at guys like Jordan Davis last year. Yeah, Jordan Davis was an animal in the run game. The reason he slips to pick 11 or 12 or maybe 14 was because he couldn't rush the passer. Jalen Carter, very good against the run, but what he's going to bring to you in a skill set that's so important when you're talking about NFL defenses is the ability to rush the passer. Very, very good at that. I think PFF graded him as the best interior defensive lineman. We'll talk a little bit about Will Anderson. I still like Will Anderson a lot, but I do think that Jalen Carter is starting to emerge as probably the most dominant non-quarterback prospect in this year's draft class. Pick number 3, Will Levis. I don't like it. Will Levis, not better than CJ Stroud. I get you want to draft the traits of Will Levis. Very big arm. He's a good athlete. He's big. CJ Stroud has just been better. He's been better accurately. He's a better pocket passer. He can extend plays as well. But from what you've seen from Will Levis and CJ Stroud, I find it very, very difficult for a team to be taking Will Levis over CJ Stroud from what you've seen over the last 2 years. And again, I get it. It's kind of like the Josh Allen lottery ticket where you kind of want to take a stab at a guy like Will Levis, and if he pays off, he's going to be kind of a franchise quarterback for years. I just think CJ Stroud has shown better film. He's been the better player. I think you're kind of just overthinking it if you do take Will Levis over CJ Stroud. Now, we just talked about CJ Stroud. I love CJ Stroud. I think he's accurate with every single ball he throws, whether it's intermediate, whether it's over the middle of the field, whether it's towards the boundaries on the deep ball. He's got good pocket presence. I'm a big fan of CJ Stroud. I think he's clearly the quarterback too. And then after Bryce Young, after CJ Stroud, that's when you see kind of the big dip, in my opinion. Pick 5, Will Anderson to the Eagles. This would be the Eagles have a chance to just build an absolutely special team. Probably the next best prospect who's not a quarterback. Not even probably, for sure, the next best prospect. The only thing you have to worry about with Will Anderson is you got to figure out what you want to do with him because he is a little bit smaller, 6'4", 243 pounds. That being said, he never plays small. He's very, very good against the run. He's a very, very good pass rusher. And when you see Will Anderson playing his best football, just like Jalen Carter, he's wrecking games. He's kind of a freak athlete. The ability to transition from speed to power when pushing these tackles back, very, very special. I think that's a no-brainer for the Eagles. Obviously, they want to ride with Jalen Hurts, who's probably going to be the MVP this year. They have a chance to really build that defense up with Will Anderson at pick 5. Pick 6, Myle Murphy. He is my next best non-quarterback off the board. Very Josh Edwards and I agreeing with a lot of things. I love Myle Murphy. He's a very, very traditional 4-3 defensive end. I love his get-off. For a guy who's 6'5", 275 pounds, his get-off the line of scrimmage is very, very special. He has the ability to win around the edge with speed, but he also has the ability to just go right into the chest of tackles and kind of blow up pockets. Very, very good against the run. Probably the best edge defender against the run in the class. I think Myles Murphy, if you don't want a quarterback and you're the Carolina Panthers, I would not be surprised if they go with Myles Murphy. That being said, Panthers do need a quarterback, so I'm interested to see what they do if guys like Will Levis, CJ Stroud, and Bryce Young are all off the board. Pick 7, Bryan Bresee. I feel like I kind of want to keep building. You just picked Trayvon Walker with the first overall pick last year if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. I might want to consider building around Trevor Lawrence, who is starting to show some bones. You're seeing that team improve. I just don't know if there's a wide receiver within like that top 10 round that it's worth taking a stab at. I like Quentin Johnston a lot, but are you telling me Quentin Johnston's a top 7 pick in this class? I'm not sure. This wide receiver class is not as top-end heavy as we've seen in years past. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags do go with just the best player available, and that might be Bryan Bresee. Pick 8, Peter Skoronski. I'll give you my takes on these top 3 tackles. I think there's a pretty clear top 3 tackles. It's Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, and Broderick Jones from Georgia. My take is Peter Skoronski has had the best film. He's been the best offensive tackle in college football this year. Now, is his traits and his ceiling higher than guys like Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson Jr.? No. Paris Johnson Jr. probably has the highest ceiling. His ability to, and we'll talk about him because he does come up in this draft, his ability to get off the ball, be very good in the run game, but also in pass pro, he's a very, very good athlete with good feet. We'll talk about him when we get there, but he has a problem with the anchor. Opposing edge rushers do get into his chest a little bit and push him back into the quarterback. And then Broderick Jones is probably in the middle. I think Broderick Jones' film, from what I've seen so far, is better than Paris Johnson Jr.'s. That being said, I don't think his ceiling is as high as Paris Johnson Jr.'s, but I think it's higher than Peter Skoronski. So you got 3 tackles that you're not really sure what to go with. If you want the most solid guy, Peter Skoronski is the guy. He can play guard. He actually might be seen as a guard in the NFL. And then Paris Johnson Jr. probably has the highest ceiling. And then you got Broderick Jones, who's solid, high ceiling. I'm interested to see kind of how those 3 tackles shuffle out or shake out as we continue with this process. Pick 9, Anthony Richardson from Florida. This is the ultimate lottery ticket pick. I mean, Anthony Richardson as a top 10 pick to me is crazy. If you watch what he's done at Florida, the inconsistencies are so extreme, but it almost reminds you of what you saw from Josh Allen at Wyoming. Anthony Richardson and Will Levis are 2 project quarterbacks. In my mind, I wish Anthony Richardson stayed for another year because I think he could be kind of a no-brainer top 3 pick if he puts it all together. He's got a rocket arm. He's the best athlete on the field. It's just you see him sail balls over his wide receivers. You see him throw them into the dirt. He really struggles with putting touch on his balls. So like when he's throwing that deep ball, he just wants to throw lasers. He doesn't really have that feel in throwing with touch over defenders yet. But again, when you watch him, you know you can teach him all that stuff. He's just a project. And when you take Anthony Richardson, whatever team is going to take him, you have to know what you're getting into because he is a project. Now, the benefit is when he's figuring it out in the NFL, he's going to have his best asset, which is his athleticism. That'll help him it will avoid really ugly performances from Anthony Richardson because when you're that good of an athlete, you can make things happen. You can move the chains. You can move the football. I just think he's going to take a couple of years to really put it all together. I don't think you'll see many people saying he is a no-brainer lock as a first-year starter. Pick 10, Trenton Simpson. I love Trenton Simpson. He is my linebacker 1 pretty easily, especially with the year Noah Sewell has had, which is not great. I think Trenton Simpson might be the only linebacker that's worth taking in this first round. Top 10, I still feels a little high, but when you think about the future of the NFL and where the NFL is going, it's so important to get linebackers who can carry tight ends over the middle of the field, who can go sideline to sideline, who can make tackles in open space on running backs in the flat. Trenton Simpson can do all of that. He's got ideal size. He has great athleticism. I was not as impressed as I thought I would be with his season this year from what I've seen. But again, what you see with those traits at the linebacker position in this modern NFL day, I think Trenton Simpson is clearly the best linebacker, and he's a linebacker that's going to improve your defense in a big-time way. Green Bay Packers go get Michael Mayer. We're not really sure if we see Aaron Rodgers back in Green Bay. Michael Mayer is a very, very special tight end. I I don't know if I'm taking him in the top 15. I think he's great. 6'4", 265 pounds. He's a physical run blocker as well, but he's also very, very good at working the middle of the field, making those catches, those combat catches. I think he's clearly the tight end one in this class, but when have you seen a tight end drafted in the top 10 be like, yeah, that was worth it? The last I can remember, Kyle Pitts, who just hasn't had like that ideal situation. I'm not ready to fold on him yet and sell him off. But then like TJ Hawkinson, we haven't seen many tight ends who have come in as a top 12, top 10 pick and say like, yeah, that guy was worth it. I'm a little skeptical on Michael Mayer because I don't know if the top end athleticism is there like it was with a guy like Kyle Pitts. Michael Mayer is a big body. He's very good at the position. I just don't know if he has that Kyle Pitts athleticism that makes you comfortable taking him with pick 11. Pick 12, this is my cornerback one as well, Kelee Ringo, 6'2", 210 pounds, great straight line speed. Definitely will be better more in zone coverage because he's a little stiff in man coverage. He definitely struggles mirroring and sticking with receivers. I think he can improve with that. But again, when you're 6'2", when you're 210 pounds, when you're physical like him, when you have the ball skills like him, when you have the athleticism like Kelee Ringo does, and keep in mind, this guy coming out of high school is a top 5 prospect in the whole entire country. He started to put it together the last 2 years at Georgia. I really like Kelee Ringo's game. I like a lot of cornerbacks in this class personally. I think it'll depend on what you want to do. If you want to run more like man coverage, like you're the Buffalo Bills, you're probably getting a guy like Joey Porter Jr., maybe Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. But if you do like to run a lot of zone coverage, Kelee Ringo probably the best cornerback in that scheme. Pick 13, Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. He's going to be one of the more talked about prospects leading up to the NFL draft. 6'6", 275 pounds. He has a stupid wingspan. I'm pretty sure it's like almost like 77 inches. Don't quote me on that, but very, very long arms. He started to be very productive this year. Whenever I watched him, and I haven't really gotten into his film in a very big way yet. Whenever I watched him, I didn't think he had the athleticism to be a top 15 pick. That being said, the traits are there. I mean, 6'6", 275 pounds, extremely long arms. I can see why people like him. I just don't know if he's that next edge that I'm taking, especially when you have a guy like Jared Verse. In my mind, this edge class, I think you have like a couple top studs, Myle Murphy, Will Anderson. I'd almost throw Jared Verse in there from Florida State over Tyree Wilson, and then you have a little bit of a drop-off. Then you guys have like guys like Felix, Anaduke Uzama from Kansas State. That took me a second to remember how that went. Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. I just don't know if Tyree Wilson is worth a top 15 pick here. Pick 14, Paris Johnson Jr. The Steelers definitely need offensive line help. Paris Johnson, when I watch his film, and I've watched a decent amount of Paris Johnson Jr., 6'6", 310 pounds, his get off from the line of scrimmage, especially when he's blocking in the run game, is very, very good. He is a mauler, and he's got very good feet. His biggest problem is, and you saw it against Aiden Hutchinson last year in the Michigan-Ohio State game, you saw it a little bit this year as well. People get into his pads a lot. He needs to get I don't know if it's a weight gain thing or just working on his leverage and using his hands, but people get into his chest and they push him back into the quarterback. That is the one big flaw you've seen the last 2 years from Paris Johnson Jr. Keep in mind, this guy was a former top 10 recruit coming out of high school. He's very, very athletic. He's very, very explosive. He's very, very powerful. I think this ceiling is very special for Paris Johnson Jr. He's just got to work on that anchor. He's got to maybe fill out, put some sand in his pants and maybe play at like 6'6", 320 pounds, or just work on that leverage and really not giving up ground and pass protection. If he does that, I think he's the best tackle in this class. Pick 15. We were just talking about tight ends not being worth it. Darnell Washington, we haven't really seen a tight end like this. The first 2 years, I was saying he should have just played tackle. I mean, 6'7", 270 pounds coming out of high school. He hasn't really gained any weight. So why didn't he just put on 30 pounds and play tackle? He's very, very good in the run game, but he's starting to put it together as a tight end. I mean, Darnell Washington is a guy that's caught for over, I think he's almost at 500 yards for the Bulldogs. Very, very good in the run game. And when you see that fit with what Dan Campbell and that offense wants to do, they want to run the football. Darnell Washington is going to help you run the football, but he's also emerging as more of a pass catcher down the field as well. He's got better hands. The drop rate has gone down this year. Then when you have a guy who's 6'7", 270 pounds in the red zone, teams are looking at how they can score touchdowns when they get inside the 20. Darnell Washington will help your team do that, especially when you have a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's not as big. Now you add Darnell Washington, who is a big target, who's going to be able to catch touchdowns. And he's going to be able to help in that run game, I think, most importantly. That's his best trait. He's 6'7", 200. He's basically a six offensive lineman out there. Very strong, very explosive. I just talked about how I don't like picking a tight end that early. Darnell Washington, in my mind, might be worth it. Jaxon Smith-Njigba at pick 16. He's another really polarizing guy. I've heard. I mean, he didn't play pretty much at all this year, but last year he was probably the best wide receiver at the position. He's, from a physical standpoint, he's our first wide receiver off the board. When you watch him last year, I think it's really hard to argue he's not the best wide receiver in the class on the college football field. Very good at creating separation, very good at creating after the catch. And CJ Stroud, he was CJ Stroud's safety coach, like in the middle of the field in that slot position. He was always open. He's a QB-friendly guy. And especially when you talk about Keenan Allen maybe not being there for the Chargers next year, I get it. That being said, the traits aren't really what you want for a top 20 pick. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. I'd be really surprised if he runs faster than like a 4.45. Like, he's not a burner. He's just really good at the position. And then it comes down to, are you going to take the traits of like a Quentin Johnston, or are you going to take the production in the film of a Jaxon Smith-Njigba? That's going to be up to the Chargers. I normally, when I'm talking wide receivers, I lean towards the traits. That's why I have Quentin Johnston as my wide receiver one. That being said, it's really hard to argue that Jaxon Smith-Njigba is not one of those dudes who's going to be very, very good in the NFL, even though he doesn't have the physical traits like Quentin Johnston does. Jordan Addison, probably another one of that. I think he's a little bit more gifted. I think he's got a little bit more speed, and he did it at Pitt. He's had a good season at USC. I like Jordan Addison a lot. Again, Quentin Johnston is my wide receiver one, but then when you talk about who's wide receiver two, who's wide receiver three, with Kayshon Boutte staying at LSU, Jordan Addison is probably in that discussion. Does seem like a very good fit for the Patriots as well. He's thin, he's wiry, but he's a damn good receiver. Washington Commanders at pick 18, Joey Porter Jr. This has been my guy since the summer. Very long arms, very physical receiver. He's a handsy receiver. And when you have a receiver who can play man coverage and put your hands on another wide receiver like Joey Porter Jr., it's going to help your defense. And again, if the Commanders want to play kind of some press man coverage, Joey Porter Jr. is probably your guy. Very, very long arms. He's a very good athlete. He's got smooth hips, and he's got good ball skills. I really like Joey Porter Jr. I think this would be a very solid pick for the Commanders here. Pick 19, O'Cyrus Torrence. Again, if you're drafting an interior offensive lineman this early, he better be good. O'Cyrus Torrence, probably the best guard in the class. If you want, he's going to help that run game a lot. And the Bucs have struggled with that inside of the offensive line. This really depends on what the Bucs want to do. If they want to run it back with Tom Brady, or if they're going to try to take a quarterback. Or you don't really know what the Bucs are going to be doing 6 months from now and what this team is going to look like. But O'Cyrus Torrence he's a very solid prospect. He's very big. He's very strong. He's good in pass protection. He's good in the run game. Pick 20, Jared Verse. This is my edge three. Jared Verse, coming from SUNY Albany. I think you guys probably all know the story by now. Comes from SUNY Albany, just as like a freak athlete, 6'4", 250 pounds. And I think the narrative was he's going to need a year to adjust from jumping up, not only like at one level. This was like FCS, Group of Five. Now he's playing in the ACC, a Power 5 conference. And he came in and was pretty much the best player on Florida State's defense. Dominant. He's very good off the ball. He can win outside. He can win through tackles. When you watch the tape of that LSU game, he was unblockable. And he hasn't really played healthy much of the season. But when he's healthy, he is a very, very special player. I think he should go higher, quite frankly. I would take him over Tyree Wilson as of right now. I think he'll test better than Tyree Wilson. Yeah, he doesn't have the frame. He doesn't have the long arms like Tyree Wilson, but I think he's a stronger. I think he's more explosive. And I think the film, quite frankly, has been better for him. Christian Gonzalez, pick 21. He's a guy that's picking up a lot of steam. I haven't quite gotten into him as much. That Oregon secondary has struggled in big ways. I think he had 4 interceptions on the year. He's very, very good in man coverage. I'm not going to talk too much about him because I haven't gotten the film in on him. I've only really seen him play when I'm watching Oregon play. Pick 22, Broderick Jones. Again, this is my guy. He's probably my tackle one right now. I think he's got the traits to be a very, very good tackle and a high ceiling, but he's also been very, very good this year. And that's kind of the difference between Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones. I think Broderick Jones has been the better tackle. Yeah, Paris Johnson Jr. might have the higher ceiling, but I think Broderick Jones has been the more complete offensive tackle this year. That's why he's probably my tackle one. Paris Johnson Jr. tackle 2, Peter Skoronski tackle 3. but I'm still trying to figure out how I want to value these guys based on their traits, based on their potential ceiling, but also based on what they've done on the football field in 2022 at the college level. Cam Smith, pick 23. I think I like some other cornerbacks a little bit better than Cam Smith. He's another guy that's good in man coverage. Gets his hands on a lot of footballs. It was very good last year. Was solid this year. I'm not saying he's a Mod Sauce Gardner because I don't think he has the length of him yet, but he's very handsy and he's gotten a lot of pass interference penalties. Struggles sometimes to play the ball in the air, but I do think he's a solid prospect. I think I would lean a guy like Devin Witherspoon over him, but again, it's kind of early, and I got to get more into that cornerback class. Pick 25, Brian Branch. You got to know what you want to do with Brian Branch. I mean, I think he's more of like a nickel. He's not going to play outside safety. He's kind of played that hybrid role, him and Malachi Moore for Alabama. But at the end of the day, when you watch Brian Branch, he's very good. He's a good tackler inside the box. He kind of allows you to do a lot of different things on the defensive side of the ball when you're trying. All these teams are trying to get as much speed on the field and as much guys who can cover on the field and stop the run. And I think Brian Branch is a guy that's going to be able to do that because he's very comfortable making tackles inside the tackle box. He's also very good at kind of playing that nickel spot. That's what he did for Alabama. He did a lot of different things. He blitzed, came off the edge. He played single high safety. He does a lot. If you're going to draft him, you kind of want to know you're going to want to know what his position is going to be for your team. Pick 26, Quentin Johnson Jr. He is my wide receiver one. Him and Rashad Bateman would be absolutely awesome for Lamar Jackson. Quentin Johnson Jr., I'll get on my little soapbox for him for right now. 6'4", 215 pounds, great straight line speed. When the ball is in the air vertically, he's coming down with the ball more times than not. But what sets him apart for me is the ability to work the middle of the field, the ability to create separation on comeback routes. He gets in and out of his breaks very, very good for a guy who's 6'4", 215 pounds. It's not rare to see someone 6'4", 215 pounds, kind of like a Christian Watson who has burners, who can win vertically down the field. The special part about Quentin Johnson is how good he is after the catch, how good he is at creating separation, how good he is getting in and out of those breaks. And that's kind of why he's my wide receiver one. He's not a one-dimensional big wide receiver. He can do it all. And that's why I think he's going to be, wherever he goes, he's going to provide value because he's good in the red zone. He catches touchdown passes, but he's also very good after the catch. And you can do a lot with a guy like Quentin Johnson. Devin Witherspoon, my guy, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. Him and Joey Porter Jr., very, very similar players. Handsy, man coverage cornerbacks. Ryan Walters in that Illinois defense played a lot of man coverage. They blitzed a lot. They played like single high safety, and they kind of left those cornerbacks on an island. And Devin Witherspoon was up to the task. I think quarterbacks were like 48% completion percentage throwing at Devin Witherspoon, which is very impressive considering he didn't have a lot of help most of the time. There was not many safeties over top. He was on an island, man coverage, and just absolutely eating wide receivers up. Here we go with Felix Anudike-Uzomah going to the Cowboys. Again, just building up that pass rush with a guy like Micah Parsons. Now you add another guy. I'm not sure if I have him as a first-round grade yet. I do think there's a pretty significant drop-off from guys like Jared Verse, Myle Murphy, and Will Anderson. He might be worth kind of a pick later in that first round, but again, I think there's some other prospects that I might take a look at if I'm the Dallas Cowboys. I want to get a little bit more film on him. He's been productive for 3 years at Kansas State. He's a very solid prospect. Bijan Robinson going to the Chiefs at pick 29. He's probably going to fall just because I don't think a lot of teams are going to take a running back in the top 15 just because the value of that running back position isn't that high. For me, Bijan Robinson is the most complete running back we've seen since like Saquon Barkley or Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's that special. I mean, he led the country in broken tackles. He's a guy that can hit the home run ball. He's very good out of the backfield. He's a very good pass protector, and he's very good at just getting hard yards between the tackles as well. You won't see a more complete running back prospect in this class. And so if you want a running back who's going to do it all for you, like the Kansas City Chiefs might want with Clyde Edwards-Helaire just struggling to stay healthy, struggling to be a good running back, I could see a team taking a flyer on him even inside the top 15 because he's that special of a player. Josh Downs, I think, would be great in this Minnesota offense. You have Justin Jefferson on the outside. Josh Downs is going to eat you up in the slot. He's been one of the best wide receivers the last 2 years. The chemistry that him and Drake May showed this year, very special. Yeah, he's not that big, 5'10", 175 pounds. took most of his snaps from the slot, and when he was on the boundary, it was mostly just screens. He's not a boundary receiver. I don't think that should be. I lean more towards like, why are you going to knock a guy for just being a slot guy? There is a very, very good market. The best offenses you see have guys who work from the slot and are QB friendly wide receivers. I think Josh Downs is going to be like that. Very good at creating like short space separation. He's very good after the catch, but he's also very tough. I mean, he makes those combat catches. You very rarely see drops on the film. And that for that reason, like, I'm very okay with Josh Downs being a first-round pick. I think he's been one of the best wide receivers in the country for the last 2 years, and I'm okay with it. Jahmyr Gibbs to the Bills at 31. I don't think I'm buying that. We just drafted James Cook. In my mind, James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, very similar skill set. Like, they're not going to be as successful running between the tackles, but they're very good out of the backfield catching footballs. You just took James Cook. Devin Singletary's looked solid. You just traded for Nyheim Hines. I don't know if I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs at 31. Not necessarily because I don't think he's worth a first-round pick as a prospect. I just don't know if I like the fit there. And then pick 32, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. They go get DeJuan Jones. Very similar to Daniel Faalele, 6'8", 360 pounds, but he's a better athlete than Faalele was, in my opinion. Again, I get concerned when you're drafting guys who are that abnormally big, like 6'8", 360 pounds. Like, is the body going to be able to hold up? Is he going to be able to be athletic enough? DeJuan Jones, though, is a much better prospect than Daniel Faalele was. I think he's a better athlete. He's got he's got a bigger wingspan than Daniel Faalele does. He's got big hands. He just eats up guys. But again, the athleticism, that big of a body kind of concerns you in a little bit. That'll round out the first round of this mock draft of Josh Edwards. Let me know in the comment section, like, players that we've missed. There's a lot of guys when I'm filling out my spreadsheet that I have first round grades on that did not show up in this draft. I think the quarterback discussion is very interesting. Like, are we going to see 4 quarterbacks go? Or guys, our team's going to take a risk on taking an Anthony Richardson or Will Levis in the first round. We're going to see. I'm very, very excited to see how this quarterback class shakes out. I think we're going to see a lot of guys come back. We've already seen it. Devin Leary goes back. Tyler Van Dyke, we're not really sure on yet. This is going to be a very, very exciting draft season. Kind of just getting a fresher on some of these top prospects. Again, we appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do like the content, you like talking the NFL draft, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.